Welcome, everybody. This is Karl Polachuk, and I'm joined by my very good friend, Jeff Ponce. Jeff, since some of my friends don't know you and some of your friends don't know me, why don't we begin with a little bit of who you are and how you got here?
Sure, yeah. Obviously, thank you, Karl. I'm Jeff Ponce. I am a founder of Datatel Solutions, which was a master agency started just a little over 17 years ago with my partner, Daniel Langton. And been in the telecom and technology space for a while, started a software development company about 5-6 years ago. I think Karl and I met at at SMB Nation, I don't know, 10, 12 plus years ago. And we found out that we lived in the same region, which is Sacramento, California. And we've been good friends ever since. And here we are.
And ironically, we spend more time meeting each other in other places besides Sacramento.
True. Very true. So we did start something new prior to COVID-19, where we were getting together at least once a month to have lunch. So we weren't getting together to have lunch or a beer in some other city like Las Vegas, when we actually lived maybe 20 minutes from each other.
Right, exactly. So I'm Karl, and I ran an IT consulting business. I owned a couple of them in Sacramento, California, and sold them off. And I also have sort of evolved into writing books and doing training programs for IT consultants to help them be better at the business part of the business. So that's kind of how we know each other, is from the IT and telecom worlds. Several months ago, almost a year ago now, Jeff told me about this program called AIM, Agape International Missions, and what they're doing in Cambodia. And so I couldn't help myself except to say, yes, let's go do something. So Jeff, do you want to talk a bit about AIM and the program?
Yeah, so I was introduced to AIM probably a decade ago. And from a pastor in the church that I go to, and their mission just kind of resonated with me. Their goal was to literally put a stop to sex trafficking in Cambodia, and Cambodia really seems to be ground zero for sex trafficking. And I think Karl and I can go into a little bit why there in a little bit. But they've been fighting the fight for now 15 years. And but I was introduced to them a decade ago. I started actually giving money to them on a monthly basis. But, that was really kind of where I left it. And it just kept kind of pressing on me. I had an opportunity to meet some of the folks, especially Matt Robertson, which I believe is on this call, from Agape. And we got together, we planned a trip, but the goal of this trip that we were going to take wasn't, like a church mission trip. It was actually to bring business people to Cambodia and see how could we help create vocations and jobs for the girls that are coming of age, right? The sad part is a girl that's sold into sex trafficking. The average age is 8. Right, which is a very scary thing. But a lot of those girls are now coming of age, and they need help. Right, they've worked hard to come up with careers for these girls, but there's thousands of them. So I decided, how about if I reach out to my friends and let's come up with some creative ideas? But I thought the first thing we needed to do is actually go over there and witness for ourselves. And Karl was kind enough to pick me up on it and came with me. But as far as AIM goes, they just had their 15-year anniversary, which is amazing. So they've been in the fight that long. It was founded by Don and Brigid Brewster, who I was fortunate enough to have lunch with in the Sacramento area when they were visiting. I'm going to say 6 months ago or sometime around there. And heard the story right from them. And so, Don went over there on a mission trip, like a church mission trip. And almost immediately when he was in this very dark area called Spypack, everywhere he stepped, somebody was offering him a girl, a child, for sex, and he couldn't even believe what was happening. No matter what he did, where he turned, that's what was happening. It weighed on him so much. He came back home to Sacramento. He was from Sacramento area. Talked to his wife about it. They sold everything, dropped their entire lives, and moved over there with no experience, no cash, and they started the fight from there. And they've built an amazing organization over time. A lot of volunteer Americans and folks from other countries, and they have now, after 15 years, a Cambodian staff of 485, which is just amazing.
Yeah. So I want to talk a bit about kind of the trip that we went and some of the things we saw and the people we met. We started out, it's sort of appropriate to go to the killing fields. During the 70s, the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot regime, literally they had this vision of that, everybody should be like a simple farmer. And so they started declaring as enemies anybody who was an intellectual, a foreigner, people who wore glasses. And the result is that they pretty much destroyed their own civilization by killing anyone who was a teacher or a scientist or somebody who could contribute to their society. And it's in many ways unrelated to AIM, but in many ways it's the background that makes it a little understandable that some of this stuff happens. When you eliminate all the religious people and all the teachers and so forth, and then it also creates some challenges that we're going to talk about later in terms of what AIM had to do. So Jeff talked about Don and Brigid, starting this in 2005, and they actually rescue girls every month. And in fact, just since we came back, there was already another rescue mission that got some press. This is not a fundraising call. What we're here for is to try to figure out ways to help AIM with the kind of talents that we have. But if you choose to give, just know that this is an extremely effective program. The people that we met are not living in palaces. Sometimes you give money to organizations and it turns out that they're just designed to make a handful of people wealthy. And that is absolutely not what's going on here.
Yeah. Carl, can I add to that also? So I know that when I give, and I have multiple charities that I've given to, I always check the charity out on Charity Navigator. It's charitynavigator.com.org. I'm not sure which one, and they rate every charity that's out there that's asking for your money, and they do it by a star rating. They do it by percentages. AIM has literally a 100% rating. And there's maybe 1% of all charities that have that. That's an amazing statement right there. And they also have a star rating, so that you can get up to 4 stars. They've had a 4-star rating for 5 years in a row. So you give $1 to them, they use it the way it was supposed to be used.
Right. So John has his hand raised. John, did you want to say something, or are you just saying hi? All righty. So one of the things that I don't know, maybe I'm just naive, but I had never heard of sex tourism before this. It's beyond my comprehension that this takes place. And so they have these things called karaoke TV lounges, which I guess if you're a tourist, they just look like a bar or a place to go as a tourist. And so, I don't know. You would drive by them and never, ever notice. So, you would never know that what's going on there. And, that being the case, you don't know that these are actually places where people go to buy little girls. It's pretty amazing. And so one of the things that AIM's done is, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later, but they've not only rescued girls from there, but also they've worked with hotels to say, look, we're not allowing this here. This is literally a sign from the hotel we stayed at. As Jeff said, Spypack is this area where, when you're here in the U.S., everything is halfway around the world. But, when you get there and you realize it's pretty close to the airport and it's pretty easy for people to just hang out there. There are people who come from all over the world, men who come from all over the world, just to go there to molest little kids. It's pretty unbelievable. This is a great video. I created a bit.ly link, which is just bit.ly/AIMVID1 if you want to watch it or link to it so that you can watch it later. This is just like a 2.5-minute video, but it shows you some of the facilities that AIM has put together. This is a view from the top of a place we went to visit where, they're all working at sewing machines and putting together materials to sell, clothing and branded T-shirts and that sort of stuff. And so part of what happens is after the girls are rescued, they go through a program to kind of, get back into some kind of a normal life. Part of that is to give them some kind of a skill so that they don't have to be tempted to go back into the sex trades. This isn't actually a place where you could have things made. So if you needed branded T-shirts for your company or whatever, this is a place where you might be able to get something made.
Well, and matter of fact, if you've ever been inside of a Chick-fil-A and you see all the workers with their aprons on, to say Chick-fil-A on them, it's most likely it was made at an AIM factory.
So we went day one. We looked at the facilities in Phnom Penh, where they have like a training center. They have a daycare for the girls. They have classrooms, and they have quite a little culinary arts operation there. And it was pretty impressive. This isn't, it's one thing to say, well, we'll train them to make bracelets and T-shirts, but you have to wonder, how sustainable is that on a much larger scale? And part of what we wanted to think about as a technology community is what can we help them put in place going forward that are, additional programs that have a broader appeal. The culinary arts is actually one of those because everybody needs a restaurant somewhere, and all the things you learn there are really something you can take with you forever. So we also had lunch with Eric, who runs the SWAT team, and here's Jeff. I also put a note in here that, part of this is that we went to restaurants that support the cause, and we met with people who support the cause. And, Jan Thorne was our driver, and, he's part of the community. And, the Miss Kim in Spypack, tootled us around on tuk-tuks, and, she's a big supporter. So, it's not just all about helping the girls. It's also creating a bigger community that supports everything that they do. So
this gentleman that I'm pictured here with, so Eric, he is the head of the SWAT team, and it is a fully trained SWAT team that are badass guys and gals that kick in doors and save these girls. And Carl and I had the benefit to sit right across from him, have lunch with him. And honestly, Carl, I'm speaking for you, but I could sit and listen to this guy for days and never get bored. The stories and everything. But he's very Scottish, has an incredibly heavy Scottish accent. So
very strong accent.
Yeah, just listening to him, you had to listen to every word to really actually get what he was saying because it was that heavy. He actually did sound like Sean Connery, to be honest with you. And when he left, you could see, he trains the SWAT team, both Cambodian and other, could be Americans, could be other British people. I know he's got quite the special forces background. So when we left this meeting, we knew that he was a very kind guy, was completely passionate, but we also knew he could kill us in like 2 seconds if he wanted to. So he was, he's that kind of skilled. But what I was more impressed with than his physical skills and his team skills was the fact that they work with a very, very large legal NGO on a daily basis. So kicking indoors is a very small part of what they do. And these girls are, they're voiceless, right? They get saved, and if and AIM rescues them, but what happens after that? It's their word sometimes against some bad guys, and the bad guys have money and potentially influence. And so this legal NGO helps to protect these girls and to make sure that the bad guys are brought to justice, even if they're trying to buy off politicians. That's the majority of their job. And that's impressive. And that wasn't something I was expecting to hear when we met with them, because I had no idea myself. And it just brought more clarity to how AIM is moving through and taking care of these girls.
Yep. Well, and a couple things that stood out to me from that lunch. One was how, first of all, the police have no training to do any of this. And so one of the things that this was one example that happens is AIM runs up against a problem and they go, okay, so what do you do about that? If the police don't have training, well, you raise money and you buy them handcuffs and, the basics that they need. And then you train them on how to do an actual, SWAT raid. The other thing that really stood out to me is how much politics and the legal system is involved. And, a lot of what they do is they make sure that they've got all their ducks in a row before they knock on a door, because they want to actually put these guys in jail. And sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes all they can do is get the girls and leave. But the goal is to actually put these guys in jail. And that's something where, sometimes they step on the wrong toes and, it's some politician's cousin or whatever, and they just do what they can. But the goal is to have enough evidence before they knock down the door so that there's no questions.
But the bottom of this slide, though, don't lose the importance of this. Eric's team rescues 5 to 25 girls per month. Just imagine that. 5 to 25 girls a month rescued from slavery. That's as Herculean as I've ever seen.
And it's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we also met with Tommy Sim, who's a local entrepreneur and investor. And I think this was his brother's phone shop. But we, talked to him about lots of opportunities of investing. He invests in, some restaurants and some other things. And, we were interested not just in phones, but, what are the kinds of businesses that we can help people set up there? And is it realistic? I think we were, as entrepreneurs, we were a little struck that all the phone shops are together. Like, what's the deal with that? Because you would think that you wouldn't want to be next to your competition, but it turns out that you're more legit if you're in an area where there's other phone shops, because that's where people go to buy phones. If you have some weird phone shop over by itself in some other neighborhood, then people wonder whether or not it's a legit phone shop. So, it's a different approach to marketing and so forth. But it doesn't look like there's huge barriers to entry to get into phone repair and some of those kinds of things. Other comments, Jeff?
Yeah, no, that's where the creativity is going to come in. Carl, you had told me, about an organization that I had never heard of, right? Because you spoke in Vegas at their trade show. That isn't it like a $6 billion industry, right?
Yeah.
Fixing phones and computers. I had no idea.
Well, and we stopped at another phone shop, a friend of Chanthorn's, that the guy was saying that they will buy $1,500 or $2,000 worth of phones at a time, and a lot of them they're buying stuff that's no longer saleable in the U.S. They just have to be unlocked so they can work on any network, and then they can be sold. And so it's all that piece of it, very legit, very above board, but it's just hard to believe how many phones they were. On the other hand, everywhere we went, everybody had a phone. So that's quite amazing. So anyway, so there's opportunities there. And then we made a trip to Spypack itself. And I have to say, this is one of the most emotional things for me, is seeing that street. Because I'd only seen it in the videos. So to see it paved and children playing was really something for me.
This was that dark area we were talking about. This is where I told you that Don would walk down the street, and everywhere he turned, somebody was offering him a child, and it was dirty. It was just it was poverty at its worst, and now it's vibrant. Now, there's schools, there's children playing, and this region right now, you can equate all of this to AIM right here, because their consistency of staying there and fighting the bad guys drove them away, and now you have a vibrant community.
Yeah, it was interesting to me. So one of the things that happened there was they raided this house, and I guess next door there was a guy who was building a hotel specifically to traffic girls, so that instead of going into some dirty room, you went into his hotel. So you have a nicer place to molest children. And as bizarre as that sounds, that was nearly complete when the raid took place. And he realized, if AIM is coming to town, this isn't going to be successful. And so he sold them the building, which is now their headquarters. So it was never used for its intended purpose. And it's a nice enough office, but I got to tell you, it would be a pretty crappy hotel. So, but it's amazing, because they have that facility, and then they have the training facility next door, where we saw the picture from above, and they have daycare across the street, and down the street, they have built this school, which is amazing. And this is just, it looks absolutely brand new. It's got to be a few months old anyway. But this is a school filled with children. And, I mentioned one of the things that happens is AIM hits a speed bump, and their attitude is, okay, how do we fix that? And one of the speed bumps they hit is there's no teacher training programs. So what do? Well, you have to create a teacher training program. And so they did. And so they have a lot of students who have become teachers because of the facilities that they put in place. And it's really amazing.
One of the other things that really struck me is, inside the country, there weren't any special needs classrooms. So if you have a child that has special needs, usually they just stayed at home, and parents just put them in the corner and dealt with them the best they could. AIM actually created a special needs classroom and program, and now parents are telling the folks at AIM, going, I had no idea my child could do this, that they had a potential future. I mean, I believe I cried when I heard this one. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and this is all designed by, an architectural firm that was like intending to make it so that it felt like a community, right? The building is designed in a way so that the classrooms face, the courtyard area, and it's well designed. It's not just, we took some 2x4s and started putting stuff together. So they've got some real facilities, and one of the folks that was with us was an architect who, spent some time digging into the details there. And then across the way from that, just across the parking lot, is Lord's Gym, where they have basically a place for the young men to go to hang out, so that they've got a place to go and something to do. And so this picture makes it look much bigger than it is, but they've got a nice little boxing arena and weightlifting, and they put on programs so that the kids have got a place to go. Did you have something else, Jeff?
Yeah, next to that, which we don't have a picture of, there's other facilities being built right now for younger children also. A lot of after school, so not just associated with the 8 to 3 o'clock school day, but actually things kids can go do after to kind of fill their time.
Right. So this is a still I took from one of the videos that they have on the AIM site. But we went to visit this Brickyard. And by the way, we did not take photos of most of what we saw because the government tracks absolutely everything there. And the photos can have a geocoding in them. And some of the people, some of the children that we saw would seriously be in danger if people could find out where they are. And so it's important to not do that. So this was taken from the video, and we went to this Brickyard, and this is not only a problem with sex trafficking of girls, but also in this case, there were a lot of the boys are basically, they're born into these super poor families where the parents borrow money from somebody, and then they become essentially indentured servants. And, their children come of age and they start working in the brickyards. And, it was almost unbelievable that this even happens, but giving these kids a place to go so that they're not underfoot, so that their parents can actually, go make a living is a huge thing that a lot of times we don't think about in this country,
And when we were there, we met a young man who gave us a tour who grew up there. And he works for AIM now, and he works to get these children out of this brickyard and into schools. And it is slavery. I don't care how you look at it. It is hard work and you'll see small children, and they're and by the way, the amount of money their parents borrow and can't get out of the debt, you're talking about a couple $100. You're not talking about big money, but it just, that 200 becomes 300 becomes 400 because they're literally living in the space of the guy who owns the brickyard. It is just, it's so sad.
And Matt put a note on here that the Lord's Gym was funded by the Puljos, Puljos Foundation. So, so there's that. And then on the entrepreneurism side, this is Mrs. Kim who took us around, and this is her team plus Jeff and Dan. I really appreciate the fact that, one of the things that happened is that we went to restaurants where they were supporting AIM and the cause in general. We tried to come up with, some ideas. But again, part of this is to see what's possible. They have a great need for computer equipment at the school and at the headquarters. But, we don't want to have people just donate all their used junk, right? So one of the things that I think that this community can do is to organize to actually help them put together a plan and architect it out, and then say, okay, where do we get this equipment, that equipment, the other equipment, and do it in an organized fashion. So.
Yeah, and to add to that, right? This is a decent sized organization, and I can tell you, I've worked with other NGOs. I've traveled. I've been in the jungles of Indonesia. I've been in Uganda. I've been in other places. I have never seen a more efficient organization in my life. Completely focused from all the way from Don and Brigid's original vision through through the other American folks in other countries. You know, we saw pictures a ways back. We didn't talk about them, but Matthew and Melissa, who are country directors. But it's mostly ran by Cambodians, the 485 people from Cambodia. A lot of the people on the SWAT team were girls that were saved years ago by that very SWAT team, by the way. So they put themselves in harm's way. But where do those 485 people come from? It comes from every different organization that has grown from when Don and Brigid started. You know, you started with a SWAT team. You know, then you had to build. Well, if once you save these girls, okay, what's next, right? You can't just save them and say, oh, good luck to you. So you have to have they built restoration homes. Okay, so once you have the restoration homes there, you can house them and feed them, but then you have to have counselors and social workers and folks to help these girls along the way, because there's a lot of post-traumatic stress there. You know, and then after, okay, we have to educate them and just help them at every single level. So there's 10 different programs there that support these girls. And it's a big organization, but every time we met a leadership from every single program, they're focused. They knew what they were doing on a daily basis. I've just never seen anything like it, either in the nonprofit world or the private sector. I'm impressed. So there's multiple places where we need help. First is, you know, we need to put together what I like to call a mastermind group, right? Because there's different creative ideas. You know, when I just started socializing this idea to Karl, he came up with multiple ideas right off the top of his head. And I know everybody on this call has those same capabilities. So we have a lot of these girls are coming of age now, plus a lot of them have come to us truly right as young adults themselves. So they weren't just coming as children, but they were 18 to 22, 23 years old. But if we don't teach them a vocation, they've got to make money. A lot of them are single moms. They need to survive. So how do we help them to not fall back on going back and being trafficked for absolute necessary reasons, right? So we need to help them to come up with careers. I know we can do that, right? This is a smart group of people. It starts with technology that they need, for sure, right? And what I'm hoping we can also do is help them build out their own network. They don't really have a network, right? They're using Google email. They don't have a CRM. They don't have all the system, the cloud systems that I think they need to run. And I'm sure the folks in America would think the same thing. So how do you run? Because the leadership comes from the United States, but most of the work is done in Cambodia. And they also have dreams of taking this on the road and not franchising it, but taking what they've built and coming to other countries, and by the way, including the United States. So how do we help them to build that infrastructure? That's one thing for the organization itself. How do we get the computers there so we can teach them? I mean, Karl and I were talking, Code Girls is a good example. Can Code Girls help them to teach a vocation, right? Coding to these young girls. We know that that's a good vocation. There's so many other things that we can do, but I might come up with an idea. Karl's come up with way better ideas than I did, and I bet everybody on this call has got ideas that we'll never even thought of. And so we're kind of hoping that we can build a community with that, starting with this call.
Right. So we're almost done with the slides here. So then we went to Siem Reap, which many of you know because Angkor Wat is there. It's a good touristy area. And we started with a preschool where there were some kids who go there for the kids club, and it's a shockingly small facility that helps 270 families. We also visited a transition house, which, it's pretty small, can house about 10 women. But, one of the things we found out is that, you talk about a drop in the ocean. It's unbelievable what the numbers are for this. And, at Siem Reap at night there's a great night market, and we went to that, and we were told that they have identified 111 women and girls who are in the prostitution trade that want to get out. They sit them in front of these restaurants, and basically, if you were to walk in, it would be exactly what Don experienced 15 years ago. They're just open in the public, offering girls to you. And then we drove down the side road where they had beauty salons where they looked normal. If you were a tourist, you would not know the difference. And, my friend Peter made a note on Facebook that they were there like 3 weeks before we were. They went to the night market, and he went with his family, and, they all had a great time, and he didn't know that any of this was going on, right? And in the beauty salons, there's like 3 girls and 1 guy in each beauty salon, and the guy's just sitting there playing with his phone, and the girls are getting dolled up so they can be taken to the restaurants. It's like a machine, and the thing is, you can't rescue the girls and then not have a program for them. In some ways it's hard, but you have to rescue them at a pace where you can truly rescue them and get them out of that life. And I think that's the hardest thing, is all these supporting programs.
Yeah, sadly, rescuing these girls is a growth industry with a hockey stick kind of growth if they had the facilities. You get to know these people, and you can see the look on their face when they tell you a story that they know of 111 girls right there in this region that they want out. If they had the space, they 111 girls would leave, but AIM doesn't have enough facilities there to take care of these girls, to get them out. And I know I could see the pain on their faces, and this is, it just almost seems like it's never ending. But they fight the fight on a daily basis, and they put a smile on their face where they can, and I'm truly impressed with them.
And I did want to make a note of hope that one of the things that I did notice in Siem Reap is that they do have a legitimate tourist business, and you can go there and not be exposed to it, and you can go there and enjoy yourself and contribute to their economy. And so to me anyway, I guess I had to pull some hope out of it, right? And that's the piece where there are restaurants that support these programs, and there's lots of stuff where you can go there and not be involved in all of this stuff, but it's a hard thing because so much of it is so entrenched. And the people who have the money to go on sex tourism, they also have cell phones and computers and high-tech ways of finding each other and finding these facilities. And so in many ways, the battle isn't going to go away. It's just going to get moved around. And, AIM needs to figure out, how we take it to the next level. So.
Yeah. But to your point about the food, though, by the way, I think we ate some of the best food I've eaten in my entire life. And every meal was so inexpensive, it was unbelievable.
Yes, we didn't eat the spicy scorpions, but
No, we stayed away from we did eat at a restaurant though that did have tarantula, scorpion, and a few other odd things on there, and we definitely stayed away.
Right. I know Josh has got his hand up, or had his hand up. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question, or, we have a Q&A section, but also if you want to ask a question or, just offer something. Josh?
Carl, thanks. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Well, you made a comment early on about not having been aware of sex tourism around the world, and unfortunately, I'm surprised you weren't. It is virtually everywhere. I can't say that I've noted it in Scandinavia, but South America, Central America, North Africa, Eastern Europe, marginally Western Europe where I've been, and Southeast Asia. It's hard to remain positive in the face of that kind of exposure. And it's also hard to remain hopeful when you guys talk about the numbers, because 111, that was probably one district, one village, one area.
Right.
There's thousands. And the part of the problem is that country is currently run by somebody who greatly profits from this, or at least there seems to be very good evidence to that effect. It doesn't feel like it's going to come from the top down. So it's hard to be hopeful. Having said all that, it doesn't matter. To use a stretched metaphor, as an IT security guy, we're up against millions of miscreants, and there's only a few of us, but that doesn't mean we don't do our best, because that's what you do. That's the honorable thing to do, and it's great you guys did this. I'd like to help brainstorm about how to do longer term stuff. I think we talked before you left about putting together what I vaguely called a call center, but maybe with a bank of computers where they can serve multiple purposes, such as providing education and training and producing work product, whether it's graphic arts and design or becoming a call and support center. It doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility that you could pull people from this rather than push them. And that might be the right pull.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a lot of times people think of call centers as like tech support, but it doesn't have to be that. And, a lot of these kids are so young. I mean, and for the most part, the 8-year-olds are moving into education, and it's the older girls that have the training, the ones who are getting ready to have families and so forth. So a couple of questions. So Stacy asked, can they have the slide deck? And yes, we will send the slide deck to everybody who is on the call here. And Nat asks whether a recording will be available. And I said, yes, we are recording this. I'm not sure where, where it'll be posted, but we will make it available. So if you're interested in giving, obviously there's a link for that. Also check out the AIM shop. And if you're interested in doing custom orders, you can go to the custom link. I think we all brought home gifts for our family from the AIM shop. That's where I got birthday presents for my daughter and her girlfriend. So.
One of the bracelets you're going to see in the AIM shop, it has the number 22 on it, and I know that has a lot of meaning to our veterans in the United States, right? Because it's estimated that 22 of our soldiers or past soldiers commit suicide on a daily basis, which is just horrific in itself. But sadly, the number 22 means a whole lot to the AIM organization also. So that's why you'll see literally the number 22 on the bracelet. So one of the young girls who was saved by the SWAT team over there was in a brothel for 22 days. And when she was rescued, somebody went to her and said, "Don't you feel lucky that you were only there for 22 days and you were saved?" And her words were, "I was raped 198 times in 22 days." And if that's not a call to battle, I don't know what is. Sorry for that emotional moment there, Carl.
Glad you told that story, not me.
Sorry, but that Josh, to your point, yeah, you can only do so much, but you can save that girl, and you can save the 5 to 25 that they do now. And again, they're building this organization to take it on the road to other countries, including the United States. I mean, when I was fortunate to have lunch with Don and Brigid, what I brought up earlier is they want to bring this roadshow to the United States. So it's different in the United States. Obviously, there's but it's still the same. Slavery is slavery.
So Blake mentions that he made a trip to Phnom Penh and Siem Reap and a few other villages with the ministry from Colorado Springs, and would like to help with, as it was a tech mission, and they made some good discoveries as well. So, if you're interested, send a note to Jeff or to me, and, we want to, basically try to get together. I don't know, I don't want to call it a mastermind, but, we want to get together some folks who are in the technology industries who are interested in brainstorming about things we can do. We all have resources, and, unfortunately, this was back in February, and we all got home and got sent home because of the pandemic, and, the world has changed and so forth. But we still have more to give than pretty much anybody in Cambodia. I mean, even if you got laid off yesterday, I assure you, your lifestyle exceeds that of the average person that we're trying to help in Cambodia. And, a lot of what we need in our industry is brain power. We need to figure out what are some things we can do with modern technology that can help. What are some programs that we can get into? One of the things I learned from AIM is anything that you think of as a stop is a speed bump. It's just another problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, completely agree, Carl. Couldn't say it better myself. Finding vocations for these girls is a lot bigger than just giving them a job. Surviving is a lot different than healing. And the healing process has a lot of different pieces to it. But I'm telling you, a meaningful career will help these girls not only thrive and be able to pay their own bills, but also put their past behind them. And on top of that, their successes will build on other people's successes, because young girls will see them as successful, and it will keep perpetuating itself. I will tell you, a long time ago, my wife and I, with a group of people, started a school in the jungles of Uganda, and a lot of these kids were orphaned. A lot of them were. The parents were almost all of their parents were illiterate and didn't even understand the value of an education. And when we're realizing we're putting this whole thing together, that in our lifetime, in my lifetime, I'm never going to see the benefit of this. But what's going to happen is these kids are going to get an education, and then when they're adults and their kids, they're going to see the importance of the education, and all their kids will get one. And then you can take a country back, right? You can improve things because people have that education, they have the skills, they have the knowledge, and they can dream. Same thing for these girls in Cambodia, right? It's very, very hard to dream when you're just trying to survive, when you can't even get your head above water. So that's what we're trying to do is if we can help them to dream, to get them a vocation, it's going to help the ones below them, so that the next generation isn't looking to find a job in the sex trades because they have to take care of family. So because not every one of these girls is sold. A lot of them literally, I'm not sure why. I never really quite understood why. The eldest daughters of a lot of these families, their responsibility to take care of their entire families, their moms and dads. It's a cultural pressure, and they don't know how to get out of it. The only thing they could think of to feed their family was prostitution. And then they end up being sucked in by a pimp, just like the stories you probably hear in the United States. But they don't know any other way to feed their family. So this is a big part of what we're doing.
So Frank says, can you add a bit more commentary on tech usage at the facility, specifically PCs? I've got a program in mind that could be hugely helpful. So there's not a lot of technology going on. The official school has got some computer programs, but not a huge amount. Part of what has happened is they don't have all of their systems connected. Part of what Jeff talked about earlier is, they got one guy who, I think he was very happy to talk nerd to nerd to us, but when we asked him what he needed, he was like, "Oh, we need laptops for this and this and this," but he just didn't have a vision of how big he could be asking. Right? It's sort of like he was asking for a handful of things because it was what he could see the next step as. Where we can envision much more, I think, but they have old equipment. It tends to be disconnected from each other, and so in terms of their facilities, like the headquarters, they have some basic equipment, but they could absolutely use anything modern. But like I said, I kind of have this sense where we want to be organized about it. So if you've got a program in mind, by all means, we would love to add you to our mastermind group.
Yeah, there are other, if with the hardware, right, we could set up the network so there was plenty of computers so the kids could learn, right? I mentioned Code Girls earlier. There's other programming classes that teach young children, that might be able to take place in Cambodia. We don't know what that looks like yet, but any help that you can give, anybody that that plays in that space, yes, absolutely, we need all the help we can get.
Matt's going to go to another meeting. Don't worry, Matt, we will be in touch. So, all right. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Carl, because I can't see a list. Is Susan Penevolpe on in there?
Yes.
Susan, would you unmute yourself and add if you can? Because Susan was with Carl and I. So I want to see if she can add any color to what we missed.
I have clicked allow to talk. She may not have a microphone.
Nope, I do. Can you hear me?
You do. Okay,
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Guys, I thank you so much for pulling this all together. So, and thank you for including me in the trip. It was a life-changing experience for me. And I think one of the things that we talked about every day when we got back to the hotel was, in spite of the scope of and the intensity of the situation, everyone we met was so positive and giving and loving and upbeat. It's just an amazing organization of how they continue to enable the people they are helping. And one of the things that I'm working on doing is it's kind of a combination of green and and products for the AIM store was candles. So being able to get recycled bottles from the facilities and the restaurants and things like that for free, and turning them into products that they can sell. And I actually brought some beer bottles home that you guys helped me drink. And they are now candles.
My pleasure, by the way.
Exactly.
Yes,
And they are now candles using essential oils that I actually purchased at one of the, safe and supportive stores in Cambodia. And so it's just a win-win all the way around. So,
yeah, I was going to say that I know that you brought home some essential oils and stuff. So
yep.
Clearly they don't have to come, to the U.S. to get ingredients for
exactly.
a program like that. So.
Yep. And it's, and it's a low cost and the key too is, you want things that are a little bit labor intensive and it's easy, right? You cut the bottle, you sand it with sandpaper. It's not an expensive endeavor. And it's just, and there's also that green element of, recycling, right? Because there's just bottles everywhere. So.
Yeah, excellent.
I hope to go back soon and teach them how to do it. So.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty, any other comments or questions? So again, send us an email if you're interested in, getting involved. And again, I'm not even 100% sure what that means, but we'll have a more private get together of the folks who volunteer and try to come up with some actual specific plans about, things that we might do. Engage Matt and some of the folks from AIM with, what the first step would be and how we get, our toe pointed in the right direction. Anything else from you, Jeff?
I just want to thank everybody for taking the time on this call. Look, we're all up against it right now, but you took the time to listen, and it can be an email, it can be a phone call. By the way, I have a lot of friends I'm sure that are on this on here also. But if you want to have a conversation, send me an email. I'll pick up the phone. We'll have a call. It doesn't, this isn't a one and done thing. This is just the start. For me, this is definitely just a start. This, AIM is going to be part of my life on an ongoing basis. And I thank everybody for taking the time.
Alrighty then. So we're almost exactly at the top of the hour. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Send us a note if you're interested. And with luck, we will continue to do many good things. Thank you all.
Thank you.